The Federal Executive Council approves road infrastructure contracts worth about 4.2 trillion naira, covering key highways and bridges across Nigeria, including access roads to the second Niger bridge. Blessing, let me start with you. 4.2 trillion naira, that's a large sum of money. And to be sincere, we need infrastructure in Nigeria, whether in the north, the south, the east, and the west, and the presence of infrastructure. Let me give a vivid example. When Babatunde Fashola became governor of Lagos State, during that time, I was living in Ajegunle. At that particular point in time, the development in that place was almost zero. We have dilapidated houses there. And if you wanted to buy houses during that time, you could people were just looking for money. I bet you between 5-7 million naira, you could get yourself something because the environment was not it at all. But it came in with infrastructural development. It started laying roads into Ajegunle, into the boundary area. And just because of the presence of those roads, the price of real estate sprouted like this. Banks started looking out for properties they want to purchase so they can site some of their centers there. Although they were very careful, they had to site some of their branches close to the army barracks, close to the navy barracks for security purposes. However, the prices of real estate sprang up. Businesses started coming into that area. So we cannot undermine infrastructure. 4.2 trillion naira, Blessing. Do you think we will have something great? I mean, something beyond the expectation of the government while citing the infrastructure?
That depends on a number of things. It depends on who's the contractor or who are the contractors to handle the project. It depends on what is the percentage of funds that will be allocated to them. And it depends on the quality of work that the contractor or contractors would do there. The reason I put out this number of factors on the table is recently, we had a case in the aviation ministry where a contract was awarded for the second runway at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport. Now, from the time the project was approved to when some fund was released, and then today, there's been some time. And that had resulted into a contract variation, which now made it the price now to complete the work, or the cost to complete the work, is so much more than what it would have taken if it had been done within the period of approval. So, we're talking about 4.2 trillion naira now. If there's some stalling, if there's some delay, and then at some point the work gets abandoned, we might have that same situation. But I think it's a good one that the government is thinking about infrastructure, and road is very important. Connectivity. People need that connectivity for ease in commerce, because these roads are opening up people to regions where you can have commerce. It's very critical connecting the eastern parts of the country with other parts of the country, and even connecting the southern parts of the country like that. So that way you will make people easily ferry goods. You will make people easily travel to do business. And when the roads are not in a very good state, or you are congesting a particular route, then you increase traffic, and you also increase the time it takes for people to get to one point to another, and you also increase the cost of traveling. So it's a good one. There are attendance developments that come with infrastructure. There you have more businesses around that area, and it opens up those locations. So it's a good one. However, I'm hoping that there is good implementation of this from the contracting firm to the percentage of funds that are released, and then to the quality of work that is done. If all of this is achieved, then Nigerians should be smiling at the end of the day.
Well, we hope to smile, Doctor.
Yeah, I think for me, it's again quite happening that government is doing what they should do. That the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Road take a chunk of that money, 1.3 trillion. And that, of course, that extend that road from where it currently is in Lagos through Ogun Stretch, ending at the boundary of Ondo State. And then, of course, you have the stretch coming from Akwa Ibom, also getting to Calabar. So, which means gradually because the lifespan of that road, when it was announced over a year ago, was the fact that it's going to take 8 years to complete. And I'm just looking at if this year budget we can get 1.3 trillion to move that stretch to Ondo. By the upper budget coming, that stretch from Ondo through Edo can get to Delta, and then coming from this other place. So which means, like people have predicted, like it was a white elephant project that will not be completed, may completely not be out. My only plea is that this is sustained, so that that road can actually deliver its dividend. And there's no doubt about it that a whole lot has happened along that stretch of road. Getting property now on that as is a hot cake for some people, and so because the economy around those places are changing. Also strategic is the fact also connecting Asaba and part of Onitsha and the way to Imo to the second Niger bridge, which is also taking about 480 billion to make that access road happen. And so you look at it, the second Niger bridge has been constructed. There's a need to connect Asaba to it so that there'll be a lot of the congestion using the old bridge, which of course really causes delay, especially when you are moving out of Onitsha or coming from Asaba to get into the southeast. So once those access roads are also created, it will decongest those areas, and you will see a number of things happening. What is also quite very interesting is the fact that now Maya has succeeded to put his feet on the ground, that we're not going to be depending on asphalt, as it were, that all these contracts that are signed, they are going to be concrete pavement on this road, so which of course will make them last longer. And you see that talking about lasting longer, about 198 or so was also put on Lagos Ibadan.
Yes.
And since Obasanjo regime in 1999, we have been on that road and it's never completed. Because you use asphalt on a certain portion of road, after 2 rainy seasons, the road become bad again, and government continue to invest in those roads. And I just feel that we have to insist on see how we can have durable roads that are constructed and taxpayers' money are not wasted by contractors on using materials that are substandard, that you make a road today and it can't take 5 years for it to get bad. And that for me is what really excites me in this, that it was not just the fact that they are signing contract, but that this is not just asphalt roads. They are going to be done by concrete.
All right.
Boa cement, Dangote cement, make more cash.
And you need to give us the money for that.
Don't worry, they will, Boa will pay.
One thing we are not looking at here is the road, or the Lagos-Calabar coastal line that took the largest chunk of the money, because some of the roads that are getting allocations from this 4.2 trillion naira are projects that has already been on ground. In fact, you even referenced the Lagos-Ibadan expressway that has been in the Frontburners since time immemorial. We remember very much when the previous administration even borrowed some money from China and from the World Bank to facilitate the building of that road. Why do we, most of the time when we look at this, because corruption cannot be perpetrated by one arm of government alone. It must have the collusion of another arm of government. So if there are contractors who are not living up to the terms of reference of the contracts, and the executive has the executive is the one that awarded the contract, or the contractor won the contract through a bidding process. The National Assembly, the legislative arm of government, is charged with the responsibility through oversight functions and to probe any inconsistency they see in the execution of this project. But we don't see much of that. In fact, there are allegations against some administrations of the National Assembly that the oversight, those who carry out oversight functions, just go to the ministries or the contractors who are doing that, and they just don't collect. They just go there, collect their share, and walk away. And this is not auguring well for some of the agendas and some of the projects, the laudable projects of the executives on ground? How can we, bypass this line? How can we?
I think for me, it's a problem that has to do with our budgetary system most of the time. When you don't have enough money to actually start a project and you have to award a contract. One engineer told me some years ago that because you see where the money actually is in the contract is in the preliminaries, the sand filling and the rest of it. And once they have gotten that big chunk of money, they have done what they are supposed to do and the other money is not coming, they're moving to the next site. So until money comes, they will even leave equipment in that place. So you find that because the construction is not consistent, it causes a whole lot of engineering distortions by what is said. So it's like you see, you have leveled this thing and you have matched it strong, and then you are waiting for government to give you money
To finish that next phase.
And then to move to the next phase of asphalting. And now 10 months, 20 months, money is not coming. So by the time you are coming, just pour asphalt on it. But that structure would have been weakened. And I think that was what Nyesom Wike was saying one time ago. And he said that he believes that this MLO system that we use in construction can work. It can work for that procurement, but not for construction of roads. That if we have to construct roads, the money must be available. That if government is going to withhold money, that will be maybe what the contractor will gain as profit. But we have to look at that the fact that this road is going to happen, then of course we look at it and assess the phase and then mobilize contractors as and when due. And then of course you can find a good job done. So I think it is the budgeting system that's actually affecting the way contractors deal with our basic infrastructures.
Okay. Yes, it goes back to what I said earlier, that the hopes here is that the funds needed for the project are released so the work can go on. Because where the funds are not released, whether they're available or not available, you give room for all of this to happen. And when the contractor says, I do not have enough fund, or my firm does not have enough fund to continue the project, you find that the project stalls. And sometimes it takes a lot of time. Maybe at the time the agency in charge of that project or the ministry in charge of that project then has funds, there's been some variation. And if there's no agreement to the continuation of the project, you're bringing a new contractor on site, sometimes they need to even start the process all over again. You find that work that has been done, because the work was supposed to be continued and not stalled, that particular work may need to have some adjustments done or totally removed, and then they start afresh so that they can have more work done. For instance, if the grading of the road was supposed to be done and we were supposed to follow it up with some other things, and the grading of the road was done years after some other things have happened to the road, erosion and all. So you will need to maybe grade that road again. So you find that you are putting in more into the road than you would have at the end of the day. So it falls back to funds being there from the time that work needs to be done. If the government needs to come into some partnership with those who will fund the road, maybe they have a way of recouping back their funds, then that should happen. But to start work and believing that funds will come in and then funds don't come, the work is abandoned. Later on, when the work starts again, you are now having to do some maintenance or maybe
starting afresh. And sometimes people wonder, like, what is going on? I think a very good example would be the Lekki Expressway that has been under construction for several years. You find that some portion of the roads are being worked on at a particular time, and they just leave the work for some time, move on to another part of it. After maybe some months, they return back to an earlier portion of the road that they started working on. So I think that fund is necessary, and maintaining contractors will do a great job, but especially if the contractor is doing the job and is delivering
quality, then continue with the contractor. But when you have to change contracting firms for reasons, maybe there are variations, or you feel one contractor wasn't delivering, sometimes it gives room for a lot of inconsistencies and increases the budget for that particular work.
Okay, I also want to quickly chip that when governments are giving out contracts and there's a bidding procedure for some of these companies to come in to bid for the process, the status of the organizations that are coming to build for those contracts are well looked at, and there are conditions they are supposed to meet, and that includes the capacity of those organizations to even have personal funds to execute the contract, or even to form a consortium, a group of other companies to execute those contracts. In cases where they are unable to do that, we see those roads reappearing again in the budget of the next year. But if they have that, if they can do that, and when it reappears, if they get stuck on the way, when it reappears, when they issue back the same contract, or maybe when they are demanding for repayment, it's not paid in the same way the contract was sealed previously, because inflation, they put in inflationary figures that must have reflected in the contract, which there is a contract, a section of the contract, an opening that will give the contractor such opening for the government to pay such money. Now, if they are going to do that, I think it's also being responsible on the part of the contractor to make sure that they have the funds, and if they are going to borrow, they should do that. And of course,
you know that there's also the trust issue here, because there's that trust deficit. Because these are business people, you put in money into the construction project, and it takes a longer time than you anticipate for you to get back your money. And that contractor also has projects that they want to do. So sometimes these are the issues that make it impossible, or make the contractors reluctant to the extent that they want to go using their firm's money to complete the projects.